everybody. Hey, it is America's New Clothes coming at you. How has your weekend been?
Yeah, good evening from the East Coast.
And from the West. So both Derek and I had the excitement of watching The Plot Against the President last night. It's a movie. It's based on a book by Lee Smith. We have the link in the description. You can watch it for free on Amazon Prime, or I think it's $6 on Vimeo. Highly recommend it. I think one of the key things that is hard to look at in retrospect is when we are following this news, these daily news briefings for the first 3 years of the presidency that we've been hearing about this Russian collusion. There's a new piece that comes out every day, a new piece. And all this stuff that was happening behind the scenes with Devin Nunes and Kash Patel, we don't ever establish the full narrative. And so I think a lot of people who are right now, instinctively, they know that the media is against this president. Instinctively, they know that there are deep state actors who are against this president. And the play-by-play between the Manafort arrest and the, various new allegations that come out every day, they're just swamped by it. And what Cernovich did, Mike Cernovich and his team that adapted this book, was a really great service, I think, to the American public, because they put the narrative together that says, hey, let's go back to the beginning and let's see everything that happened. And we're going to show it to you. And they do it in a very good dramatic format. It's not something that you have to have followed along with. You're not going to be lost as the characters are introduced. They give them full context. And I highly recommend liberals and conservatives alike watch this movie, and you decide if you think that that's how we should be treating these folks that choose to do a service for our country and run for president.
Right. Well, not only that, I think that, and again, it's based on the book called The Plot Against the President, the true story of how Congressman Devin Nunes uncovered the biggest political scandal in U.S. history. To give it some credence, as we know, Amazon's not the most conservative site in the world, and it's got 1,975 ratings, all of them 5-star. So he did something right in his writing to be able to put this together in such a way. So, I think the easy to follow along part of it is done so in aspect of, because obviously we know there are a lot of people who believes he conspired with Russia, that he's an agent, that Michael Flynn's an agent, that Don Trump Jr. is an agent, right? All of it somehow.
They've heard it so much. They've heard it beaten into their head.
It's been beaten into their head so much. And so it's going to be difficult for these, a lot of these people to overcome their cognitive dissonance and hear these facts. And so what I would say to them is, look, based on what you know, based on what you've been told, from reading the Mueller report, from reading the Senate intel report about, what happened behind the scenes, poke holes in it then. Go and refute John Cooper, right? Go and refute what Kash Patel says. And if you can do that, then stick to your story, right? And that was one thing Kash Patel said in this when he was asked by Devin Nunes to join the team, is he said, okay, look, I know how the lack of integrity, internal controls there are at DOJ. So if we find anything, good or bad, I want it to come out. And Devin Nunes said, perfect. And he said, deal, let's go. Right? Because if it was bad against the president, Kash Patel was going to turn it over. And if it was good for the president, they wanted to turn it over. And obviously what you find out watching this is that no evidence, none, turned up to implicate Donald Trump that he's negotiated or was, what was it? They asked the 3 C's, right? It was corruption, coordination, and conspiracy.
No, I think it was coordination, collusion.
That's right. Corruption. And corruption, yeah.
And so for him, and one of the things that I thought was compelling about Kash's story is he said, I've gone through the process of securing a FISA before.
Yeah.
So I know how the process is supposed to work. Sure, I know how it gets abused as well. But the fact that he knew that there was a baseline in terms of his own experience for how to go about doing this and what you're required. I think it was John Solomon said, look, there's a handbook in the FBI on getting these FISA warrants.
Correct.
Any of this exculpatory stuff that you're going to be able to add to the FISA warrant so that the FISA judge can make a smart decision.
Right.
Because the initial reaction, and
Well,
this is what's so sad, that the initial reaction of the judge was, it sounds like you're trying to spy on a political opponent.
correct. Yeah. And and that application got denied. And so that was what was interesting, is the first application got denied. But then just all the lead up to it, right? I mean, knowing what we know now, right? That it was Hillary Clinton who had her emails hacked. She went to Obama with Brennan and said, "Hey, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to blame Russia for it." And they went along with it. So they had a narrative so that they could hit Trump towards the end, right, leading into the election. And when that didn't work, they just sped up the process, right, and started making up all of this stuff, leaked their reports. I think it's interesting how I can't remember if it was Sirkonovich or whatever that talked about the information laundering, how they launder information in the deep state, where the FBI leaks a story to, say, Ignatius, right, or David Korn. Right. That then they write up a story. They then send Isikoff, whatever his name, Ignatius, Isikoff, and Korn, right, far left guys who absolutely hate Donald Trump. So they write a story. They then send the story to the FBI or the intel agencies. The intel agencies basically say, "Oh my gosh, look what we've got. We've got a breaking story. We need to go to the FISA." That confirms it for them. They then send it back to the agencies and the news agencies, and then the news agencies print it. Now you go back to what Pelosi said about the wrap-up smear in the press conference she had a year ago, saying this is how it's done. She explained a year ago what we now know is exactly how the agencies do this. So now they can run out and say, "Look, we've got a story here by the Washington Post. Now we need to go get a FISA warrant." So I mean, it was corrupt from the beginning, right. And knowing, and again, I love how they, the Michael Flynn thing into this, because what they show you is that he knew where all the bodies were buried. Right. He was against the policy of Obama with ISIS. And on that one panel, and it was, I didn't recognize the other guy, but it was Comey, Brennan, Clapper, and Flynn, and some other guy. And Flynn supposedly was specifically told, do not say anything about the resurgence of ISIS. And he said, I can't. Right. While he was there, he may have told them all, like, yeah, I won't do anything. But then while he was there, he was basically like, I can't lie. And he told him, he said, this is what's going on. And then after that meeting, Vickers, I think, or Clapper, was it Clapper told Vickers, or Vickers told Clapper, you got to fire him. This is coming from Susan Rice, which is coming from Barack Obama. So Obama basically said, get him out. Right. And so they ordered, and that's when all the trap came, and Comey's ego of, I just sent a couple agents over, right? It's like, if it had been any other administration, there would have been process, but these guys are clowns. So, he just basically said, I'm just going to do what I want to do. And they got him to lie. But, McCabe, that one thing where Flynn says that, when McCabe came up to him after the January, I forget which intel brief, January 17th or something, and he said, hey, what, can I talk to you for a second? And he's like, yeah. And he held up what was the interview transcript and said, this is going nowhere. We're going to get rid of it. And Flynn and then Flynn went back into the meeting and said to his staff, that guy in the empty seat, that guy's out to get me. He's a bad guy. Sure enough, we know that McCabe lied, because as we find out, Kash Patel specifically asked him, do you have any evidence that ties Trump to any collusion? And he said no. But yet it goes, and now he's working for CNN. He's at CNN, I think, right, as a intel analyst or whatever for them. So
it's ridiculous. Well, I was struck by the fact that in that room where Comey, it was, I don't know, it's some business school conference, or Comey's talk, and
with Nicole Wallace,
the story of walking into the president's office or sending in the two FBI agents. And saying, these guys are clowns, and this is going to be a joke, and the gusto with which the audience reacted, like, oh yeah, let's get him,
exactly,
let's get him, let's frame the president for something he's totally innocent of. Right. I just thought that was a real sad testament to where we are as humans looking at this political discourse. So you're gonna champion these Soviet style tactics of trying to plant evidence on somebody and get them for something? That's
That's
That's not
exactly
something we should be celebrating.
it's exactly what they did. I think it was one of the guys said this is how third world countries do it, right? They can't go. We since we're a first world country, we're not going to send troops in, right? Storm the White House, take over the presidency, and remove him, but we can do it through our agencies. And so, as I think Sidney Powell says, and John Solomon said this as well, the scariest thing about this is if they can do this to Michael Flynn and they can just fabricate evidence, go to the media, and the media is going to push their agenda. If they can do it to them, they can do it to you. So don't sit there and believe that if you got one strike against you, that they're going to be like, all right, hands off, like they're not doing anything wrong. They're going to come after you. I thought John O'Connor, spoke very well to Comey's reputation. I mean, Comey, for most people that have been in the FBI that we've heard from since, he has a terrible reputation. Nobody likes him. It's all about him. And he was the author of Deep Throat and the Watergate scandal. So he knows a few things or whatever about these type of operations. And he said that what Comey does is he leads the victim to believe a truthful answer to a question is an admission to a crime. So he, in fact, gets them to lie because he tells them if you tell the truth, then that's a crime. So, and he said he did it to Martha Stewart, Scooter Libby, George Papadopoulos, and Michael Flynn. So, and Comey's as bad as they come. I mean, you can just look at him and just know. And they show his press conference when he was being nominated, or maybe he had been appointed, and he was talking about what he's going to bring integrity back to the FBI and all this other stuff. Yeah. So, yeah, I thought it was really
right. You can never get the integrity back.
Right.
That's the other thing. And the branding of Comey is, not only is he such a tall in stature. I mean, he's like 6'6", 6'8", or something. He's huge, super tall. Not only is he very tall and he has an incredible presence, but he has this real Boy Scout way of talking, which exudes. And I find that this happens all the time. I mean, whether you look at the lawyers that are doing the Hillary depositions in the past month to 6 weeks, they have just the right, the vocal timbre, the demeanor, the way of speaking is perfect for whatever the goal of the case is.
Right.
And Comey couldn't, his demeanor and behavior couldn't be further from the truth.
Right.
But the way he speaks gets people on board with this guy is somebody who really believes in the integrity of the institution.
Right.
And this guy is somebody I really should trust. But that's the most dangerous person.
Exactly.
Because what they're exuding is completely the opposite of what they actually are. And that's what we find out. I mean, I found myself just enraged by Comey after watching this.
Well, Comey, Adam Schiff, I mean, all of them. I mean, when Adam Schiff and I forget who it was, kept saying, maybe it was Nunes, right? You just have to trust me, right? Well, show us the evidence. I mean, I think Jonathan Karl or maybe Chuck Todd said, so you don't have any evidence. Oh no, we have evidence. We have it all. Like, well, then show us. Well, no, we'll show you when we're ready to show you, because that was the thing that Don Trump Jr. talks about, right? He's like, I interviewed with them for 9 hours behind closed doors in what was supposed to be a secret behind closed door meeting. Get out of my, my 9 hours deposition, get out front of the court, the House. Oh, turn my phone on, and then all of a sudden it's like 11:15. There was a ping. CNN ran a story. Oh my God, he's lying. Whatever. It's like, how does this happen? I thought this was supposed to be behind closed doors, and that's the interesting thing that Mark Turner said, Congressman. He said, "This is what's messed up about this: is that Adam Schiff or somebody can come out of a closed door confidential meeting, and if they tell the truth and the media runs with it, that's a crime, right? Because that's evidence or whatever." Yeah, but if you come out, if
information from a script,
but if you come out and tell a lie, it's not a crime. That right there is just screwed up in the process. So as all of these witnesses were testifying, as we now know, and they all said, we have the transcripts of them now, right? Thanks to Grinnell. None of them said that there was any collusion whatsoever of any kind. And yet they would run out and say, oh, we've got it. We've got the smoking gun. And Jake Tapper and all the lackeys that, are operatives for the deep state would run out and tell their story. And now all of a sudden the media or the media controls the narrative clearly. So now you have the mass part of the population saying, oh my God, Trump is a Russian asset. Michael Flynn's an asset. Don Trump Jr. is an asset. I mean, just fast forward to today. If Don Trump Jr.'s laptop was found with the stuff that we found on it now, do you think for any second they would be like, dude, he is not, he is absolutely 100% in bed with China and Ukraine and everybody else. So,
Absolutely.
but I thought too, if you go back to Kash Patel, who I thought came across as the biggest stud in the whole thing,
Totally.
is
High energy, great charisma.
right, high energy, good charisma guy or whatever, and smart. And he was brought in, and Nunes was like, well, how do we actually track this down? And he goes, look, let's just take this salacious Steele dossier and let's take a few points that we can easily prove was so-and-so in Ukraine on a certain day. We can look at airline records, credit card trace, whatever. Couldn't find anything, right? Didn't show up. Then the hotel room where supposedly Trump peed on on prostitutes. He was like, there's no room like it was described by Steele in Moscow in that hotel.
That room number didn't exist in that hotel, which I was actually really surprised. If you're going to set somebody up and make up a dossier, because what they pay him between 5 and 10 million for this, right?
No. I think it was 186,000 in total payments, but he met with the FBI on 13 occasions and on 11 times he got paid.
Right. 11
yeah, Steele didn't get paid 5 or 10 million, but because Nellie Orr got paid 50,000. And so what they show a good job of is, right, the DNC paid Perkins Coie, which then paid Fusion or Fusion GPS, which then paid the Nellie Orr, and with Nellie Orr, right, is married to Bruce Orr, who was at the FBI or the counsel, and DOJ. He was the DOJ, and he was the one that she would feed information back to. He would then leak it inside the DOJ, right, when it was salacious to begin with. What I also thought was interesting is Kash Patel said, let's subpoena the bank. And Nunes was like, you want to subpoena a bank? And he goes, yeah, because we're going to figure out really quickly, because we have to follow the money. We have to track it down. There are records of payments. So when they subpoenaed the bank, the morning before so it'd be the eve of the court decision, but at 9 a.m. the morning before the court decision was to come out, Fusion GPS admitted that, oh yeah, by the way, we paid Christopher Steele, right, who was a FBI CIA asset, right, or an FBI asset to begin with. They're trying to say that he's, pulling up all this information. I mean, the web is unbelievable. And they do a fantastic job in the movie of pulling that web together. So you know who the players were, how they're all connected. And I mean, again, if people can refute it and they've got some fact, then let it out. But as we now know, the Mueller report showed no collusion. You can read the full report. I can guarantee you 80% of the people who believe that Trump colluded, actually 100% of the people believe he colluded, haven't read the report, because the report has nothing in there. And it specifically says
the detail of, Mueller threw a bone to, instead of saying, I'm not prosecuting, he said, I am not prosecuting, but the evidence I show does not exonerate the president.
Right.
That's not a prosecution. You don't.
That's not what you're supposed to do.
That is not how you finish a prosecution.
Right.
I'm just struck by, the big takeaway has to be for people that if you have dirty cops at the highest level, the FBI is our top cop organization.
Right.
And you have a complicit and overzealous media who really wants these false allegations to be true.
Right.
You're done.
Yeah.
You're done. We have to clean house with these people, and what's going to get their credibility back?
Yeah.
How is Jake Tapper going to get his credibility back?
Yeah. I mean, they're all going
taking away these people.
Right. Look, the Russian collusion hoax was the hill they chose to die on. I mean, their careers are going to go down because of that. Right. They were out every day telling you Trump is a Russian asset, and he colluded and everything else, and going off of what Adam Schiff was saying. And, to your point about the FBI and how does the FBI get their credibility back as well? And the dirty cops, go back to the O.J. Simpson trial. What did they try to do? They planted evidence, right? O.J. Simpson is innocent because they planted a glove, they planted blood, they did this and that. So the same people who probably were saying that those were bad cops are the people saying that there weren't bad cops in this instance, right? Because they want to believe what they want to believe. So if you can prove
a moral framework to evaluate this stuff.
Right. And so if you can prove, as Kash Patel did when he said, look, their whole sting collapsed. We know it's collapsed, right? We've got the IG report that was done was the most damning IG report done in the history of politics. And it specifically said that these guys acted untoward, but they didn't bring any charges. Why? Because they protect their own. So, I mean, Trump's up against it. If he wins re-election, you and I talk all the time. Is he going to bring this out? Is he just going to say, look, release everything, get it out so the public knows? We don't know. If he loses, of course, Biden's going to brush it under the rug. He's guilty of this stuff as well. He is part of it, and he's in the administration. So they're going to get it out, get under the rug as quickly as possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
well, that's the goal, right? We got
Right.
to hope that the people who are sitting on the fence and realizing they don't want chaos in our cities, chaos in our streets. They don't want to be locked down through 2022.
right.
They want economic liberty in the form of being able to work their jobs.
Right.
They have these instincts, but they're still thinking, but there was just so much dirt on Trump through this whole thing. How can I be sure he's really a guy?
Right. Yeah.
We need to get those folks watching this movie. I highly encourage everybody needs to watch this movie. This movie will this movie will catch you up. This movie is like Cliff's Notes to, you didn't have time to read the 1,500-page book over the last 3 years. This will get you caught up in a mere 3 hours. And
Right.
It's time. It's time everybody knows the truth about this stuff. And then, dive into the efficacy of policies and all this other stuff. But this should clear Trump and the Republicans' names who were dragged into the mud.
Absolutely.
Procedure.
Right.
Especially Michael Flynn. And now you see why. You see why very early in the movie, why he was a target. And
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like John Solomon said, right, that they knew that Christopher Steele was leaking to the media, right, to get these stories written, but the FISA court never knew about that. Then they said, that they knew that Carter Page was a CIA asset, right, on our payroll. We knew him, right. That was never, and he wasn't a stooge for Russia. That was never communicated to the FISA court. And then, George Papadopoulos and Carter Page that had made truthful statements of innocence when they were asked. That was never told to the FISA court. So, and as John Solomon says, if you believe it'd be hard to believe that this Robert Kleinsmith or Richard Kleinsmith guy, who is the one that has the indictment thrown out against him, Kevin Kleinsmith. If you believe that he, at low level, just doctored a document without being told to doctor a document, you're crazy. That just does not happen. So, and again, I'll go back. You and I have talked about this before. You clearly know that Obama was in on this, because if you're a president and you're going to allow, just like Watergate, right? If you're going to allow or ask to go after your political opponent, then you risk your entire legacy as a president. So for people to be like, Obama didn't know this was done.
Free term.
Yeah. But if people think that Obama didn't know about it, it's just lunacy, right? Because you're the most powerful person in the world, and this could bring down your entire presidency if it leaked that, hey, they're conspiring against the political enemy of the opponent that is of your party. He would be like, what the hell are you doing? Right? So he clearly gave the buy-off, and we know that now when Clinton came to him about hey, Russia hacked my emails, so let's go with that narrative. And then if you've seen some other movies and documentaries, right, they hacked the RNC as well, just to make it look like, Russia hit both of them, when Russia didn't hit either one of them. Right. We now know, for the most part, who got the DNC and the Podesta emails, but that's for another show. So
speaking of other shows, we're going to try to produce a lot of content this week based on not only breaking news but other topics we think are going to be interesting. We also like to give people a better heads up about when we're going live. Maybe we'll get a little bit more live interaction. Yeah. Obviously, these videos are going out to YouTube, Facebook, and Periscope, but it's always nice to be able to have people's reaction in real time. We are streaming them in real time, not editing them. So we're going to experiment with a couple different time sets and see what works for people. But we really appreciate you watching our content, and go watch that movie.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, just to follow up on what you're saying, Mike, that, Mike he's in California, so he's covering some ballot measure stuff that's on the California ballot. So if you want to kind of learn and get some insight on those, click on and watch those videos. I do a segment called What You're Not Being Told in the Media, What You Aren't Being Told by the mainstream media, that goes into things that maybe you didn't hear about today or yesterday or whatever. So watch those videos and help us grow our content. If you like what you see, like it and share it. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook, and here on YouTube.
Awesome. All right, folks. Happy Sunday.
Have a good night. Thanks, everyone.